Season 11 of the Producer Podcast continues as I sit down with producer and author of the book, Let's Talk About Film Finance, Jason Matthewson, to dig into his journey as an independent producer and the world of film financing. So let's dive in and get started. Thank you, Jason, for coming on to the Producer Podcast today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So I had no connection to you until I think you reached out over email to me somehow and shared about the book you had recently written. Let's talk about film finance and that. So both for me and listeners, like take a little bit to just introduce yourself and kind of how you got into this industry.
Sure. I am an actor, producer, and a writer. I've been producing for about 10-ish years now and writing for probably more than that. But initially, I started out primarily and pretty much exclusively as an actor. I started out as a child actor. I've been doing it since I was, you know, like a really little kid. Did all the typical things you would expect. I'm from a little town called Rathmullen in the northwest of Ireland, which is right up the very top of Ireland for anyone who doesn't know. And I did all the typical things, school plays, local community plays, and musicals, and all that stuff. And then sort of done a whole bunch of that growing up through, kindergarten and middle school, and then moved from there into more professional theatre, and did quite a lot of that actually. I did a lot of theatre in Ireland and the UK. One of my sort of bases and a place that I still love dearly is Green Theatre in Letterkenny, which is Letterkenny is like the biggest town, sort of
Okay.
semi-town city near to where I live. And there's an amazing theatre there called the Green Theatre, based after the namesake after Green which is a bit of Irish history. Um, so they did a lot of plays and musicals, pantomimes, and all that good stuff in the Green Theatre, and then sort of moved up into the real sort of premier theatres in Ireland and the UK, from the Gaiety and the Gate to the Lyric, and then from there moved into television, doing small spots on TV, a few movies here and there, and really got the bug for it. And I just fell in love with film and television and with acting. Did a whole bunch of that for years. I've done, I think now to date, I don't know, 60, 70 screen performances at this point. And I don't even know, 30, 40 plays, movies, stage performances. I couldn't tell you at this point. There's a lot.
Hmm.
Um, but then as I was sort of moving through that, and then the sort of once I got into the professional space and doing television and film and television pretty regularly, and I've had the good fortune as well to do some really big films that a lot of your listeners will know, and have worked with some actors and directors and writers, producers, and so on. A lot of whom your listeners will also know. So that was kind of amazing to get into that space and to really see what it is to be on a proper world class movie set. And one of the things I always say is that when actors are working and between the scenes, when the first AD or director yells cut, someone always comes and scoops you off and takes you to a trailer, and you sit and kind of drinking coffee with other actors, and you know kind of, to be honest, it's a little bit boring in between the in between the scenes. To be perfectly honest, you kind of have the same conversations, isn't it? So much you can talk about the tennis or
Hmm.
football or whatever is going on at the time. For me though, I never really did that very much. I would always and sometimes I guess maybe I was a bit of a pain, but I would always walk around the set and walk around the sort of the whole studio or whatever it might be, and go and visit the other departments, and go see the camera department, go and hang out with the makeup and hair people, the costume people, the grip department, whatever it might be. And look, anyone who's in this game, we know what a camera does, but I don't know how the camera guys do those amazing shots. Like, so I know what a camera is, but I'm like,
Mhm.
I used to go and speak to the camera department and go, hey, how did you actually move the camera to make this amazing shot that we just did? How'd you get that? How did you like to the lighting department? Like, how do you make it look so beautiful or so, whatever way it looks? And I think in retrospect, looking back, I think that was the producer in me that I didn't really know was there yet. I think that was the producer in me coming out a little bit. So I really just fell in love with the whole mechanism of filmmaking. And I thought as an actor, I really did genuinely think that I knew this industry pretty well. But when I started producing, I realized that I didn't have a Scooby-Doo about how movies are actually made. So then I started producing, and to be perfectly honest, and I've said this before, um, I guess like probably like most performers who start making films, they do so to create more work for themselves as an actor.
Mhm.
In this case, for me as an actor, or a writer, maybe director, whatever it might be for you. And I found that my castings was kind of be going the one way. And at the time, certainly I had sort of longer hair and the sort of the rings and the leather jackets and the ripped pants and all that kind of stuff. So I had that kind of like motorcycle bad boy type kind of thing. And my casting sort of kind of went like that a little bit. And look, I love playing characters, so I'm like, hey, can I be the cab driver? Can I be the guy, the clerk at the liquor store? Can I be the attorney? You know what I mean? These other characters, these
Mhm.
great characters, and show and play great characters, not just be the sort of same kind of guy the same all the time and playing versions of myself. And of course, when you're looking at these really cool characters in films, and on television as well, but more so in film, the really great characters are reserved for the actors that have value. And what I mean by that is market value. Just to be clear, this is not a measure on the value of a person. This is a measure on the value of a performer
Mhm.
in the market. And that's something that I came to learn over the years. I had no clue what that even meant back when I started out. Certainly do now. So I started producing movies, as I said, to create more work for myself. And then when I began to produce, I started off again, like most when you start producing, you do a whole plethora of short films and episodes of television, a number of pilots that, of course, never get picked up. And you go through that, all that. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And I've been producing for 10 plus years now. And we have our company, we have offices in 3 different countries. We have a slate of 15 projects right now,
Wow.
13 features and 3 TV series on our 26 through 29 slate. So it's moved on quite a lot. And yeah, we're really happy with where it's going.
That's awesome. One of the things that anybody you talk to, I feel like in the industry, you get into this conversation is just like, what type of producer are you, or what does a producer actually do? Because there's these terms kind of created like executive or associate or line, but what does that actually mean? Because they change so often based on the project. So I guess first I'd love to hear kind of like what type of producer do you kind of find yourself as?
I mean, that's a great question. And you're right. I mean, there's such a misunderstanding of the producer category. And that changes. For the first thing you have to ask yourself to answer that question is, are you talking about television or are you talking about film? Because essentially, in a nutshell, the highest ranking producer in film is a full producer.
Hmm.
Uh, and then in film, a full producer is essentially the highest ranking person in that category, with an executive producer um, being the person, generally speaking, who provides the finance for the film. Whereas on television, an executive producer is the highest ranking producer on television, or otherwise known as the showrunner. So I do television, or our company does television, but primarily we do feature film. I'm a what's known as a creative producer. So to kind of break it down a little bit, you've got full producer, you've got creative producer, you've got development producer, co-producer, and associate. Um, that's there's more than that, but that and then there's line producer, but that's something entirely different. Um, I'm a full producer and a creative producer. I'm on board a project right from the inception of the idea. We write all of our own material in-house, so we've written all of our own scripts. So myself and my partner, we will come up with the idea. We'll write the script, and then I will take the project once the script is written through the development and packaging phase. So that is taking a finished script and then doing the foundational documents that's required to build the foundation of your project. And like I can't, and also just sort of caveat is that I cannot express to you how important it is. It's absolutely imperative. You must package your project correctly. It's like, to make a silly analogy, it's like if you build the foundation of your house from styrofoam and then build a regular house on top of it, it's not going to last very long, is it? It's going to fall over. And also, if you are a producer, you should be, and I'm not saying that you should be, as a writer, not being creative and writing what you want to write. For sure, write what you want to write, but don't write something blindly without also looking at the end result, and the end result being the audience. And the marker to an audience, or the link to an audience, is sales and distribution. They are the people who's going to put your product, your movie, in front of an audience. So you got to figure out what it is that the market wants right now. What is it that they're buying? You know, if the market is saying, hey, we want $15 million sci-fi movies. That's what we want. That's what we're buying. And you decide to write a $30 million drama, then they're not going to buy it, right? That's not what they want right now. So you got to figure out what, while you're writing, and it's going to help you to get your project made. Is if you're thinking that you have an idea and you want to write something, then great. But figure out what the market wants and try and come up with a story that you're happy to write and you feel accomplished, and that allows for your writing, your creative writing flair to do its thing. But also something that when you finish and when you have a product at the end, it's something that's going to fit into the market now, because the market changes all the time. And what may have worked 2 years ago likely won't work today. What will work today likely won't work in 2 years' time. So you gotta, the market's um, an ever-changing place, and it's changed by what comes out essentially. We buy and we consume as audiences. We consume stuff in phases.
Hmm.
When Twilight was happening, we were in a vampire phase, right? Now comedy went away for a long time,
Right.
and there's a whole separate conversation that leans heavily on politics as to why that was the case. But it's starting to come back now, which I'm delighted by. I mean, we need to have a laugh as
Hmm.
people as well. You know what I mean? Life is tough enough and serious enough. You know, gosh, if you can't have a laugh at yourself, you know what I mean, and not take things so seriously, just have a good time and laugh at the funny in life. You know what I mean? Then yeah, but that's another conversation. Um, but to get back to your question, I'm a creative producer, and I take things right from did a little bit of a tangent there on development and packaging, but it's really important. It really genuinely is important. And it's the foundation on which you will build your project. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I take it right from inception of idea. My partner and I, we write the script. But again, like I just said, we don't just go, oh, let's write a story about XYZ. You know, if we have an idea and we're like, oh, that's a cool idea, that could be a good story, then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call up a few sales agents and distributor friends of mine. And I say, hey, what's the market looking like in about 18 months time for a project like X, and you kind of try and gauge it so you hit the market at the right time when you have your project. And your project's going to take, you know, 5, 6, several months to write, and then another 3 or 4 months, 5 months to package. So yeah, we take them right through from inception of idea through packaging development into financing, sales and distribution, ultimately production, of course, and then production rather first, and then sales distribution, and then marketing. So all the way from right from inception of idea to an audience, script to screen, as we say.
We're mentioning how you guys have like a 15 or so project slate planned out kind of for the next several years. And just like as a producer, how do you go about not only planning that slate, but also like balancing it so you're making sure you're actually spending time on each project to keep them all moving?
Hmm. I mean, that is a tough one to be honest. It's you're spinning a lot of plates, as they say. But building it, look, and also here's another thing as well. When I started producing, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I essentially stopped working. I stopped doing any acting work. I just stopped working for about 3 years. Um, and we sat down and we created, I mean, now at the time, um, COVID happened, right? So
Mhm.
we had, like everyone, we had a lot of time on our hands to sit and write a bunch of projects. And we thought to ourselves, well, hey, look, the world's gone kind of crazy. Everyone's sitting at home, doing a whole pile of nothing. So we have a choice. Are we going to, you know, eat pizza and get a little pudgy, or are we going to take the time now to write that we, take that time that we didn't have prior to COVID when we were working to sit down and write the ideas and scripts that we have. So we did that. We chose the second and we chose the latter. And we wrote 4 features and a TV series over the COVID period. Um,
Wow.
and I can't tell you how important it is for a producer or for a company to have a slate of projects. Now, you don't have to have 15, right? But have at least 5 or 6, right? And I'll tell you why that's important because if you are going to the market, if you're going to investors, if you're going to distributors, sales agents, actors, whatever it might be, and you've got one project, you got one thing, right? And a distributor, sales agent, actor, whatever it might be, says, hey, you know what? I've just done, I've just bought, I've just financed, or I'm not interested in financing, buying, or being in a movie about XYZ. What else you got? If you got nothing, well, that's it. Conversation over, right? So you want to position yourself in a way and looking at the market, like look at the things that are always going to work, right? Horror genre is always going to work. Thrillers, they always work. Um, so position yourself where you have, and like on our slate, for example, we've got 2 thrillers, we've got a Christmas murder mystery,
Hmm.
right? Literally an Agatha Christie, straight up Agatha Christie murder mystery film at Christmas time in a hotel. So we jam 2 genres that are beloved. So what does
Mhm.
that do for us? Number one is it's a murder mystery, right? People love murder mysteries. We know what it is. It's a good story. It's twisty and turny, and you reveal the killer at the end. So it's a straight up Agatha Christie. But then we position that film at the Christmas party for a big tech company in London during Christmas. So you get all the wonder of Christmas and you get the rewatchability of
Mhm.
that film. So that movie, just like, I mean, they made what Home Alone 30 years ago, and it's still on television. The people who made that movie are still getting royalties from that, and they will forever, right?
Mhm.
So what we done was we took something that we knew would be positioned for years and years and years, and then give that tale, that Christmas tale, a murder mystery spin. And so you got 2 genres together now that's going to entertain, but also give people the wonder and magic of Christmas by way of setting it in a five-star hotel, so you get all the Christmas lights and the snow and the blah blah blah. So again, that's us thinking ahead of time, trying as best we could to think intelligently about putting two genres together that we know will work and creating a great story within that. That gives us the ability to sell that film and give it a very, very long financial tail, which, of course, when you pitch that to a streamer or to an investor, that tells them that you're thinking about their money, thinking about their investment. I'm not just asking this investor, whoever he or she might be, for a bunch of money and the movie's going to be rinsed after a couple of years. Um, this investor is going to have their investment points, their back end for this film for years. So we have the Christmas Murder Mystery. We have a true story, a movie about a hijack of an airplane called The Miracle Maneuver, which is a true story based on the hijacking of a British Airways flight 2069, 9 months before 9/11, which is an incredible story. So we wrote that as well. We've got a movie called The Unraveling, which is a psychological suspense thriller. We've got a movie called Sins of Man, which is sort of in the Get Out, Sinners type space.
Hmm.
We have a World War One drama about an autistic person gets drafted to war. So it's not a war movie; it's a movie at war. It really explores two brothers, one of which is autistic. It's a beautiful story called Charlie Safe Home. We've got a big popcorn franchise movie called Nemesis Fallen Eagle, which is again the first 20 minutes is based in actual fact about the Nazis going to Cyprus after the end of World War II. And we took real history or a little snippet of history of the Nazi party and jammed it together with Greek mythology and Zeus. And I mean, that's a kind of Wonder Woman type of popcorn commercial movie all day long,
Yeah.
But again, all set in an island, easy enough to shoot. So yeah, there's a good range of stuff on there. There's a couple of dramas. We have an espionage TV series. Think of like a female Jason Bourne kind of espionage type of thing, called Anonymous. We've got a sitcom comedy series called Matchmakers, set in a dating agency in the 90s in London. There's a bunch of stuff on there. So, yeah, it's just having a really good range. So no matter, and also not just a range of genre and style and sort of, entertainment and story factor, but also a range of ticket size or budget size,
Hmm.
So no matter which investor or streaming partner or distributor or actors, no matter what level those individuals might be at, the level at which an investor can invest, the market value of an actor, whether you're talking about, you know, Brad Pitt being up at the very top end of that, of course, or someone else being lower than his market value, we're able to work with all of these people in particular projects that match their level and match the level of budget. So no matter what project or what amount, if an investor comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got $1 million I want to invest," I've got a project for him or her. If they say, "Hey, I've got $20 million to invest," I've got three or four projects for you. So, a streamer comes and says to me, "Hey, I want a thriller. I got you. I want a horror. I got you. I want a drama. I got you." So it's building out a slate that you are able to pivot around. And that's not to say and you shouldn't, I don't think, because at the same, you got to focus and you can't be spread too thin. So it's not to say that um, we have all 15 projects spinning at any one time.
Hmm.
That's not how it works. You have, in our case, we've got 15, but we've got three that we're focused on right now. That's a three that we're going to do next. Now, if an investor comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got X, Y, and Z, and I want to grab a project that's maybe seven down the line and pull that one forward," sure, we can do that. but I'm not going to do that until such time as a partner, whether it be an investor, a streamer, distributor, actor, whatever it might be, says that they want to do that. And all of our projects as well. Again, that's why one of the reasons why I took 3 years off work essentially, because I said to myself, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. And I learned this industry back to front, upside down, and inside out. And one of the things since becoming a producer that I've learned is that, with respect, most people haven't a clue how this industry actually works. Not a
Hmm.
Scooby-Doo. They are like the entertainment business, it's two words, entertainment and business. Everyone focuses on that first word, like telling their stories and being creative and being, whatever. Few focus on the second word. It is at the end of the day a business, and you are as no matter how you want to package it, you are making a product just like anything else, whether you're making sneakers or car tires or, you know, bedspreads. It's a product. You have to figure out, okay, yeah, how are we going to make the thing? Sure. But then also, how are we going to market and sell the thing to our audience, whoever the audience is? Well, Steve Jobs didn't just decide to spend a bazillion quid on making cell phones and then figure out his audience afterward. No,
Hmm.
you figure out that, and that brings in another point that's just popped to mind, and I find this with sort of upcoming filmmakers and lesser experienced filmmakers is they um they do a couple of things that's not helpful, and that is that they write a script or they write a movie or put a piece of art together, and then they figure out, oh, hey, I need $1 million of
Hmm.
investment to make this, let's say. Okay, so you figured out that you need someone to give you $1 million so you can go off and make this thing. Have you figured out how you're going to get $1 million back? No, you have not in most cases. And then the cardinal sin that a lot of filmmakers make is they write their script, they put their crew and their cast together, they figure out their locations, they do all that good stuff, and they make a movie, hopefully, that's good. And then they go, okay, great, we've made a movie. Let's now speak to sales and distribution people. Wrong. You should be talking to sales and distribution, like I said 5 minutes ago, when I have an idea for a script, not a script, but an idea for a script. I call sales and distribution at that point and figure out the people that's going to sell this thing. What are they buying? What
Hmm.
are the buyers from any respective territory? What's Billy, who's the buyer for Germany? What's he buying? What's Sarah, the buyer from France? What's she buying? What's she want right now? What's the slate look like for Sarah? She's buying for all the TV networks and the theaters and whatnot in France, just to continue the example. Um, what's her company saying to her that they want in 6 months or a year's time? Because if they're telling her that in a year's time they want to focus on horror, then that's what she's going to be buying in a year's time, genre. And there's no point in you bringing her a rom-com in a year's time. She's not going to buy it. So you don't want to end up with your hands full, meaning a movie,
Hmm.
owing somebody or somebody's a bunch of money for which you can't make a return.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. Especially I really like how you were saying having that slate allows you to pivot if you're talking to somebody who has money, but they're just not interested in a certain genre, or maybe they want a streaming series, not a feature film. And I see that so often being kind of the downfall of a lot of independent producers is they only have that one film that they're trying to get made, and it just stalls for years till they can find that right person. Um, I'd love to maybe jump in a little bit more, looking at kind of the funding financing side. And maybe to start just like hearing from you, what are maybe some other common mistakes you've seen independent producers make when trying to like fund projects of their own?
Absolutely. The first one right off the bat, I'll say, and this is like for your listeners, if you take nothing else away from this, what you're hearing, do not make this mistake. Do not treat your financiers like an ATM. They are people. When you go to an actor, you appeal to the actor's creativity and you say, "Oh, hey, you should do this movie because the character's this way, and I haven't seen you play this character, and you'd be great in this role." Same thing for a director, same thing for a writer, same thing for your crew, your DP, your lighter, your gaffers, whatever. All the people. You appeal to their creative side. You appeal to their sensibilities of as a human being. When it comes to the money people, you go, "Hey, I need $1 million. Give me $1 million. You've got money. Give me money." They're people, right? Now, they may not participate in the creative side. Some do, by the way. Some investors are all different, right? Some will say, "How much do you need? What's my return? When am I getting it?" It's a transactional thing. And that's fine. In fact, that's what you want, ideally, really, right? Some will say, "Hey, send me the script. I want to read the script. I've got ideas for this character. Maybe we should have a scene in a bar. Maybe that scene in the coffee shop should have something else." That becomes a more collaborative thing. So investors, some will want to see the material and read it and understand the story and understand how you're going to put it out there and what audience you're marketing it to, et cetera, et cetera. Some, it's much more transactional. But in either case, right, these are human beings. So first of all, um, by whatever means these individuals have become high net worth individuals, or if it's a family office, that's essentially the same thing. You've got a fund manager managing a bunch of high net worth individuals' money. And in either case, it's individuals who've done whatever it is that they've done in life to be able to generate the kind of capital that they are able to have surplus money that they can invest into film. First things first, film investment is thought to be risky. And it is because of the means with which finance plans are put together. I always say, and again, I'm doing air quotes here for the listeners, there's what I call the Hollywood model, right?
Mhm.
Now, the Hollywood model is not resigned to Hollywood. It can exist anywhere on the planet. And we never, ever, ever finance our films in the quote unquote Hollywood model. Um, and that's why, in a nutshell, that's why financing has become very risky or is known to be very risky or thought to be because people come in and overinflate budgets. You're making a movie that should be made for, let's say, $5 million as an example. And then some director comes in and you pay him $1 million and two or three producers come in, they're getting 700K each and an actor's getting 2 million and then blah, blah, blah. And now your $5 million movie now all of a sudden is 10, right? And if you understand the economics of film finance, you will understand that $10 million doesn't mean you need to make $10 million to make it back. You see this in the trades and media oftentimes, and people who don't understand it, they'll be like, "Oh, movie X that was made for $100 million just made $200 million in box office, and the filmmakers are all crying that it was a terrible financial failure." Now, anyone who doesn't understand will think, "Well, hold on, you made it for 100 million. You made 200 million. So you're 100 million in profit, right?" Wrong. It's not how it works. When you understand the economics of how film finance comes back at point of sale, if you make a movie for $10 million, right, then your distributor is putting up another $10 million in P&A. Now it's 20, right? $20 million in the box office needs to make $40 million, right? Because when you go to the movie theater and you pay $10 for a ticket, wouldn't that be nice to still be there? Now it's like
Yes.
$20 now or whatever it is. But let's just say 10 for the conversation. So you've now made a $10 million movie. Your distributor has put up $10 million in P&A, prints and advertising. So now your budget is now 20. Uh, when you go to the movie theater and you spend $10 on a ticket, the movie theaters, or otherwise known as the exhibitor, they keep 50% of that $10, right? So for every $10 ticket you sell, you're making $5, right? And then from that $5, the IRS comes in and takes tax, 20%. And then your distributor takes their fees. And then your sales agent takes their fees. And then it goes back to the production company. So out of that $10, the production companies may be making two, maybe,
Mm.
right? So the sort of rule of thumb in film finance speak is that whatever the budget of the film, you need to make about three times that. So when you see something like, I don't know, I'll give you an example, like Barbie, for example, made $1 billion in the box office. Now, by any metric, that's fantastic, right? But that's not, Warner Brothers didn't make $1 billion because $1 billion straight off the bat, that's 500 million straight away.
Mhm.
Minus 20% for tax, that's now 400 million. Just, and well, to be fair, at their point, Warner Brothers distributes their own films, so they don't have a fee in that regard. So, you know, um, so again, that takes me back to the point I was earlier making, which is when you're going to speak with financiers, don't treat them like an ATM. They're people, right?
Mhm.
Just like you have hopes and dreams for this film, and you have reasons for which you're making it, so do they. They'll have reasons for why they're investing into film. Now, as I said, it's for some it might be very, very transactional. For some, they might want to, I don't know, have an interesting story to tell on the golf course. For some, they might want to come to a premiere and meet a movie star, right? But understand why that is the case. Like when I go in to meet financiers, I never say to them, "Hey, this is what I want." Never. I always say, "What do you want?
Mhm.
What do you want to do?" And they, give me the answer to that question, and then I will, as best I can, with my slate, and then it goes back again. Remember, back to 15 projects. I've got options. What do you want, Mr. or Mrs. Financier? How much do you want to invest? What do you want to get out of this? Why are you doing this? Because you can invest into real estate, crypto, you can put your money in stocks and shares and bonds. You can do all sorts of things with your money, right? Um, but why are you doing this? And then I will, depending on their answer, then I will, in my head, pull projects off of my slate and present them to the investor based on what they've told me that they want. You know, is this like, oh, I don't know, you've made a bunch of money doing real estate because that was the job that kept mommy and daddy happy. And you went to
Mhm.
school and did the correct, again, air quotes, right thing. But really, you wanted to be an artist. So now you've made a bunch of money, and now it's the time where you can do what you really want, what makes you happy. That's great. That will be an investor you really want. Um, is it very much transactional? Okay, cool. Then let me talk to you as a business person. Let's not get into the all the fluff and faff of the artistry because that doesn't matter to you. It's a very transactional, um, sort of money in, money out situation. So I would say that would be the main number one thing I would make a point on, which is like do not treat your investors like ATMs. They're people. Find out what their hopes and dreams are. Find out what they like and dislike,
Mhm.
and appeal to their sensibilities just like you would an actor or a writer or any other person that you're trying to uh, convince to join your team to make this movie.
I really like that because I feel like, yeah, so often in the film industry, you always hear about like, remember that the crew are actually people. They're not robots that you can run into the ground, but nobody really brings the investors in to that conversation. Um,
Absolutely. And they're so important.
yeah. So I'd love to like hear from you kind of like what are some things, that you do to help build those relationships with investors so it isn't just this ATM type experience.
Sure. I mean, relationships like anything, like any relationship, it takes time. You can't just meet someone day one and say, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you. My name is, by the way, I need." It's not going to work. You need to invest into them as people and give them the time like you would anyone else to build a relationship and get to know them. Get to know, as I mentioned before, like what it is that they want. What are they into? What makes them happy? What makes them laugh? Like who are they as people? They're not just a checkbook, right? Get to know them as people. And that takes time. And resign yourself to the fact that if you want to do this and you really want these people as partners, just like anyone else, these are partners in your process. And here's the thing, if you spend the time to actually take the time to get to know these people and to build a relationship with them, to build trust with them, that's key, building trust. Because what you want as a producer is you don't want 150 investors,
Hmm.
right? What you want is like maybe 10 individuals who you've built a relationship with, who they trust you and you trust them, and you can go to them over and over and over again when you're making your projects. And the only way to do that is to be able to take the time to build that relationship. And then when you do finally put a project to them, make sure that it is correctly, and again, this goes back to the packaging, correctly packaged. Like there's hey, my movie's going to make $1 billion because it's just like the Blair Witch Project. That's not going to get you a dime. It's not going to work, right? These people are business people. They've made a lot of money. Translation, they're not stupid. They know they're better at money than you are. They're better at business than you are, right? They've got legal advisors. They've got business managers. They've got all sorts of accountants and lawyers and attorneys and all these people around them who's protecting their assets. They are going to take this proposal that you give them to their people. And even if this investor is maybe one that's more on the sort of, I love movies side, right? And is wowed and dazzled by Hollywood, their accountant, their business manager, their financier, their all their money people, they are not going to be dazzled, right? The only way that this works is you build a relationship, you build trust, and then when you present something to them, have it be bulletproof, right? And that goes back again to the packaging. Have a great script, start there. Everything starts with the script. And then you get a line producer to who knows what he or she is doing. And again, like my line producer, his name's Amir Rashidian. He has become a very good friend of mine over the years. And we work together on every project. Like he's my go-to guy. When I have a script, like I can, like most producers, you can read a script and now I can read a script and figure out within give or take a couple of $100,000 either way how much this thing's going to cost. But that doesn't mean to say that I can put a budget together, right? My line producer does. So I send it to Amir. Amir does a schedule and a budget and a breakdown, and I know that he's good. So producers out there, if you aren't already a line producer and haven't done it, find a line producer and work together with him or her and build that partnership. That's a partnership that is worth its weight in gold because from that, you are able to then create the foundational documents, as I like to call them, the foundational documents, the cornerstones of your project. And the cornerstones is essentially four documents. There's more, but without one of these four documents, your house falls down. Your script, your budget, your schedule, and your finance plan. That's the four documents. And those have got to be bulletproof. And then they get supported. Those documents get supported by sales projections or sales estimates, sometimes they're called. And then you got all the creative documents. Then you got the creative deck, the pitch deck, the one sheets and all this stuff. But the foundational four documents, those are the keys because that's going to tell you what you're making, the script, how much it costs, the budget, how long it's going to take and where you're going to shoot it, the script, and how the money's being put together. You've got a budget of X that's going to be made up of several pieces. The finance plan will tell you what those several pieces are, how much each of those several pieces are, in which order those several pieces come in. And critically, on the last page of your finance plan, you have the waterfall. And that tells an investor how the money's coming back into the company, who gets paid when, in which order, in what priority. Is the equity investors in first position? Usually they're in second, behind any debt you might have on your film. Again, even that, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, particularly on film finance. There's three books coming. Well, there's two more coming. There's one already out. The first one's on film finance. It's Financial Film Without Losing Your Mind, which I thought was an apt title. The
Hmm.
second one's going to be on, as we've talked about a number of times in this episode, is packaging and development. And the third book is going to be on sales and distribution. But the reason I put together the first one on finance, because like the other two and other areas, it's super, super important. And there's a misunderstanding or an ignorance in our game, as we mentioned at the start. And that's like, what are the different types of money? Not all money is the same. Not all money costs the same. Depending on the type, not all dollars cost a dollar,
Hmm.
right? Are you talking about equity? Are you talking about debt finance? What is debt finance? What a gap, mezzanine, bridge, MGs, pre-sales, sponsors. These are all elements of the financial plan. And brands and marketing is coming into it more and more every day now, which is a great thing. That's a very good thing. And I hope that continues. So understanding the different types of money, how you get the different types of money, grants, soft money, tax credits, um, all of that. So there, and that essentially goes into two categories: soft money and hard money. Soft money, and essentially in a nutshell, means money that you don't have to pay back. So you want to get as much of that as you can. And then hard money is money that you do need to pay back. Um, so how does that sit in the waterfall? You
Hmm.
In which orders does it get paid? Hard money, your equity investors, that's hard money. That's money you do need to pay back. And then you have the conversations, of course, as always. Everyone wants to be last money in, first money out. That's the position that everyone wants to be in because it's the most protective. But again, if you finance and package your project correctly, as we do, and I think that's one of our strongest areas is our packaging and development because we're so forensically meticulous with how we package a project. Because to be perfectly honest, I and our team do not have time to be spinning our wheels, getting rejections on projects for reasons
Hmm.
that we could fix. Now, if someone says, "Hey, I don't want to invest into this movie because I don't like comedy or I don't like sci-fi, well, there's nothing you can do about that. That's that person's personal preference. But what I refuse to have be the case is I'm not going to invest into your film because the numbers don't make sense, because you have made a mistake or you don't have such in a document or this other document doesn't line up with this other one. That's all the packaging and development phase, and we're forensic with that. That's a mistake that I refuse to have happen.
One other question I had on kind of the
Sure.
investor relationship is then like once they're all in on your project, they've given the money, like how do you keep them involved in like a healthy way, I guess, to where you're not just going to them when you need more money or something bad happened, but they're also not causing problems on your side of things.
Sure. I mean, again, it kind of depends on the investors. Some investors want to be very much involved, and some will say, "Hey, I want to come to the set and I want to do this and I do." And for those investors, you need to manage that. Look, being a producer, really and truly, is managing expectations more than anything else. You manage the expectations of the financiers, of the distributors, of the sales, of the actors, of the crew. You're managing expectations, right? So when you have an investor who wants to be very involved and they want to come to the set and they all these type of things, you manage that carefully, very, very carefully. Um, and if an investor says, "Hey, I want to have approval of creative decisions. Do not ever agree to that. Don't do it. Um, so how do we keep the investors happy? Well, we give them a weekly update. Every week, we'll say to them, no matter what, well, even if the news is good, if obviously if the news is not good, or if things have went over schedule, or but then to be fair, we've never had that. We've again, that goes back to the meticulous planning. We've never went over budget. We've never went over schedule ever. We've
Nice.
always delivered our movies on schedule and either on or under budget. So we'll always give them an update every week and say, hey, just letting you know that the week's schedule went really well. We got all the scenes we wanted. We're on budget. We've currently spent X percentage of the budget, which aligns with our schedule. Next week, we're going to be doing XYZ in the schedule. Things are on track, and we're very happy. So that gives them, and whether they respond to that or not, that's up to them. But it gives them an email and it can just be an email. It doesn't even need to be a phone call. Just send them an email every week at the end of the week and let them know, give them an update, just like you would your other departments. Make sure that they are included in, and again, that goes back to treating them like people, treating them like partners on your project, not like someone who just gives you money and then you kind of disregard them. They're partners on this project, just like any other partner, and you keep them abreast with what's going on, just like any other partner. So yeah, and if they do want to visit the set, then that's fine. Then that is pre-organized in your contract. And when they are coming to the set, you prepare for it. Just like if a studio head was coming to the set, or
Mhm.
your partner from Netflix was coming to the set, you don't just wait for them to show up. You prepare for that, and you make sure that things are working smoothly and that the wheels are turning well. And you allocate uh, one of the producers or an assistant or somebody or a group of people to take that person around for the day and make sure that they see what they want to see, and that they go and have lunch, and that they have coffee if they want some, and whatever. You make sure that they're chaperoned essentially on the day, which allows them to be as um, included as they want to be, but uh, not overstep and take away from the ability to be able to run the set for that day. So yeah, welcome them in, but be prepared for it if they come, and keep them up to date. Give them genuine, honest feedback. If you are running over budget, if weather has shut you down for a day and you weren't able to shoot, tell them that, right? Because there's no point in telling them when everything's all done. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you about X, Y, and Z when it happened, and because of that, can you give me an extra $250,000, please? Or I need an extra 4 days, and that's going to cost. So tell them about any uh, setbacks that happens for whatever reasons. And obviously, working with a great crew and a great team, you prepare as best you can to not have any setbacks. Now, things that you cannot prepare for is always going to happen, right? And again, I go back to saying managing expectations, managing people, managing egos, managing personalities. Your job as a producer, and I've said this myself, if I do my job correctly, when I get to the set, I have very little to do. All I do is kind of walk around with a cup of tea and visit the various departments and make sure everyone's happy, make sure everyone has what they need, and watching and keeping an eye ahead of things, watching people's personalities, watching temperaments. And if I see certain people have their, you know, getting a little bit on edge, then you get in there now, right now, and go, hey man, what's going on? You good? Like, what's up? I see you're a little bit frustrated right now. What's going on? Get that, nip it in the bud before it boils into something that delays production or shuts down production or stifles anyone's creativity. Get in there and manage it. Your job is to manage people and to manage the production essentially, because your job is to manage it right from the inset. Well, as a creative producer, as I am, is to manage it right from the inception of the idea all the way through to an audience. So manage your people.
There's a lot of good stuff there, and there's a million more things we could talk about. But I do want to respect your time, so we'll start wrapping it up here. I just have a couple closing
Sure.
questions for you. So one of the things I r really loved about your book was like the war stories section
Oh
of
yeah,
each chapter, especially because like they weren't always just like stories where everything worked out. And so often
of
it's easy
course.
for people to only share the good stories and not ever talk about all the times where things went wrong or they failed. Um, but I'd love to hear from you, like, what's one failure you've had in your career that you wouldn't be where you are today without it?
We worked on a project where the producer that was on the project at the time had sales projections generated by a sales agency that essentially they didn't mean a whole pile. And he went off and raised the money to make the movie based on projections that weren't accurate and convinced an investor to invest into the film based on projections that weren't remotely accurate. And of course, when the movie sold, it didn't hit anywhere near the numbers that they were expecting.
Hmm.
Um, so, it's and then just there was conversations about how are we going to spin this. I was like, you're not going to spin it. You're going to tell the investor the truth. And that honesty, when we sat down at the table with the investor, the investor saw that one side was trying to spin the story and I was not. And we have now worked together two or three times since, and we have a great relationship. And he was like, listen, I lost some money in that film, but it's not a big deal. He's a very wealthy person. But for him, the honesty and finding the good people had held more value to him than the money. And then ultimately he'll write that off in tax and he'll
Hmm.
his people will make that go away. But finding honest people and honest partners held more value to him than being explained to him as to why this had happened. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, as a producer, it's your job. There's no passing the buck here. Oh, the sales numbers didn't stack up, so that's why you lost money. That's your fault. You're the one who got the sales numbers. You're the one who asked me for the money. It's your job to make sure that everything aligns. And that goes back again to my packaging. Forensic. Be forensic about this. Get people or sales companies or distributors who are very reputable and whose numbers you can trust. Opposed to there's a load of sales companies out there who their numbers don't mean anything. No bank would ever bank their paper. So it's easy to get sales projections. Anyone can write on a piece of paper, oh, this movie might make 20 million. Doesn't mean it will, you
Yeah.
know? So get your projections, get your estimates from reputable people and be honest. Whatever, even if it's a difficult conversation. So there, I guess, was a bit of a failure where ultimately a super positive relationship came out of it. And that was exclusively because uh, one side wanted to spin the story and I didn't. And I was just like, let's just be honest with the guy. He's going to find out. Like, his accountants are going to audit the company. They're going to find out. Um, so I was honest with him. The other party decided to try and spin it. And I've built a great relationship with that investor now. We've worked together three, four times. And someone I
Nice.
can go to now on a regular basis because he trusts me.
That's awesome. So then, my final question for you is just what would be one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's just getting started as a producer?
Learn. There's no reason for you not to understand that like the implementation of this is something you learn through doing. but um, learn the steps of putting a film together right from the start, for its inception of the script through to the packaging development, through to financing, production, sales and distribution, whatever it might be. Learn those various steps. Like YouTube is genuinely an incredible resource. Go to film festivals, jump on YouTube, even if you can't go to the festival, and watch the panel talks, watch the Hollywood Roundtable producers talks. Um, just watch producers talking at various panel discussions. Read books. I have one that you could get. Available on Amazon and on a website. It's called "Financing Your Film Without Losing Your Mind." It's an incredible resource. There's incredible resources out there. There's no reason for you to be ignorant to any of the steps that's required. If you understand um, all of the elements, then you'll better understand how to actually put something together, and you'll be in a better position to be able to put something competently together that when it gets stress tested, which it will, it'll be stress tested multiple times. Um, then you'll be good because you've done the work, you've put in the time to understand how things work, how movies are valued. Try as best you can to make relationships with sales and distributors. Um, build take the time to build relationships with sales and distributors, sales agents and distributors. Those are going to be a huge asset for you when you're trying to make an evaluation of a project and what a project should be budgeted. You now have a script. Okay, great. How much should we make this script for? Like, what's the value of this script in the market? Well, with director A and actor A and B and C that perhaps we don't know, then the script has a certain value. But if you get, Greta Gerwig to direct it and you've got James McAvoy starring, then that very same script has a completely different value. Now, the question is, can you get Greta Gerwig as an example, or James McAvoy as an example? So understanding and being realistic to the limitations of what you've got. Do you have good relationships with the agents and the managers? If you don't, create them. And then you go, well, how do I create relationships with sales and distributors? How do I create relationships with agents? By sending them good material. That's how. Now, you're going to send in scripts to the various agents and as I call them, the ABC gang, the CAA,
Hmm.
the UTAs, the William Morris, so on, and the others. You're going to send in scripts to those people and projects to those people for their clients. And they're going to pass on your projects more often than not, right? But how do you get it such that when you send something to them, they actually take it seriously? By sending in good work. If you send in a script or an offer where the offer is ridiculous, you're sending in like you want, I don't know, Christian Bale for 20 days and you're giving him 100K, then that's ridiculous. You don't understand what you're doing. So learn all this stuff, learn the value of actors as best you can, and sales and distributors will help you with that. And prepare good work. Have your packages be really, really, really good. So even if you send a package in for an actor and they pass on it for whatever reasons, the agent will be saying, hold on, you know what? Christian passed on this project because he has something else he's doing, or he doesn't want to do a thriller film or whatever. Right?
Hmm.
That's fine. But my God, this was a great package. You know, like Misha sent an amazing package in. Okay, Christian didn't want to do it, but that's a great package, right? And I read the script and gosh, that was a great script, really well done. So that will build a relationship with you and with the agent. And when you get really good relationships with the agents and you send in a package for client A, and if client A doesn't want to do it for whatever reasons, then what they'll do is they'll say, hey, listen, Christian, it's a pass from Christian because he is on another film or he's taking a break or he wants to go grow tomatoes or whatever. Um, but here is several other clients of ours who we think would suit the role because we've read the script and we really enjoy it. Um, would you think about these clients instead? And now the agent is now pitching clients to you,
Hmm.
right? Which gives you ideas and gives you options. And then you go back and you're like, oh my God, I never thought about actor A in this role, but he would be great or she would be great. And then you go back to your sales agents that you have created a relationship with, and you go back and you say, listen, so Christian isn't going to do the film, but what about actor A? Would actor A work in this budget range? Well, no, you need to bring it down by about $2 million for actor A. And then you go back to your line producer who you've created a relationship with, and you say, hey, buddy, I need you to reduce this budget by $2 million because we're looking at actor A now. And that actor has less value than Christian. You see, it's a team. You can't do this stuff by yourself. And you shouldn't. As the phrase goes, it takes a village. And you need to strategically uh, populate your village. And also, I'd say as well, like for filmmakers who are starting out, it's about coming together and sharing what you do have.
Hmm.
You might be a great writer, but you don't know what to do after that. And then you'll find a producer who's like, "Hey, I don't write. I know how to produce a film, but I
Hmm.
don't write a film. So without a script, I've got nothing to produce." Well, if you bring the writer and the producer together, now you've got what you need, right? And that brings me on to like just creating a community, and that's something we've just done. So we've created a thing called the Market Community. So
Okay.
you can go onto our website, marketproductions.co.uk, and you'll see it there. We've created a thing called the Market Community, which is a community of filmmakers from all over the world, and we brought them all together in an online community where you can communicate and meet one another. There'll be monthly calls, and there's a wealth of information in the community from templates and budget structures and how to make a pitch deck to how to write a script to connections to sales agents, connections to managers, connections to actors and agents. Um, there's a bunch of courses on there as well, which you can do based on film finance or casting or sales and distribution. It's just a wealth of information essentially that we've created, and it's totally free, completely free to join for anyone from anywhere in the world. And you have direct access to the market team, so you can send your material to us, and we'll review it. We'll help you to whether it's consulting on it or we'll review your pitch deck, review your script, help you out with your finance plan. There's templates on there for finance plans, for co-production agreements, for equity agreements, um, chain of title, contract template agreements, etc. So all of that's there. It's all downloadable. It's all free for anyone who wants to join. And we also run events as well. So we bring people together both in Los Angeles and in London, in-person events. We have a biannual producer summit where we bring investors, we bring sales agents, we bring distributors to the event, and then you can network with those people. We have pitch sessions um, at the in-person events, so you can pitch your project. And there's a whole bunch of good stuff on there. So there's a whole load of stuff. So I would suggest anyone who's interested to come over to the market community. So just again, to go to our website, marketproductions.co.uk/community, and you will see it there, and it's free to join forever.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to go check that out.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you.
On that note, we will go ahead and wrap up this episode, but thank you once again, Jason, for coming onto the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and for all your audience. This is like it's a great resource to have podcasts and to have hosts like yourself who's putting on and having great conversations with filmmakers. It's honestly, this industry has never had a problem with talent.
Mhm.
There's an abundance of talent. What there it does have an issue with, and by design, it has an issue with connection. with access and with knowledge. And that's exactly what the market community has been established and set up to sort of to close that gap of access and knowledge. Talent has always been in, there's loads of talent, but it's
Hmm.
access and it's knowledge. So podcasts just like this help to close that gap, and I applaud you for doing it.
And with that, we're going to close the book on this episode of the Producer Podcast. Join us next Friday for the mid-season finale of the Producer Podcast. Until then, make sure to follow us on social media, pick up your copy of The Producer's Life, and thanks for listening.